Hello, hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Abdulakim Yusuf Demola, and AWS Cloud Security West Africa Ambassador. Um, Today, this morning, we are going to be discussing about an important section of AWS, and we have here with us Mr. Olusola Oladipupo, who is AWS Solutions Architect. Um, Inshallah, Allah the people, you can share a slide and you can start the presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Abdulhakim. I think I'm already sharing my screen at the moment. So, okay, amazing. Okay, I think that's changed. Um, can I just get feedback from people if they can see me and if they can see my screen? If you can see my presentation and if you can see me, can you put a comment in the chat? Okay, thank you, Uche. Anyone else that's joined online and that can see that clearly, please let us know and give feedback. And if there is any issue at any time, please let us know as well. Okay, great. Thanks, Abdulhakim. Okay, I think we can crack on. And so good morning, everyone. And yeah, thanks for joining. And I believe this is the first session of this bootcamp in December for this user group. And thank you so much for inviting me, for having me. And this morning, as you can see on the slide, we're going to be going through um, cloud native architecture, right? So why cloud native architecture, for us to understand, okay, what are the benefits and its use cases, and then, you know, just to see how, your understanding of it and then how to apply it going forward and some of the things you need to do, as a user group or in terms of learning or engagement. Right. And I can only see two chats in the two people on the stream at the moment, but I wanted to ask if you are fine with putting it in the chat, right? Um, what will you consider yourself in terms of your cloud knowledge? So would you say you're a beginner in the cloud journey and you're just starting to explore, or would you say you're at an intermediate level and you are comfortable with all the basics and you are just looking to deepen your knowledge? So, what part of the journey would you say you are right now, in terms of your cloud journey? If you can put in the charts, intermediate level. Okay, thank you, Abdulhakim. Anyone else? Beginner, intermediate, or maybe you are even an expert? Anyone else? Anyone else? Okay, great. I think okay, would move on then. And okay, beginners level, two certifications. Okay, amazing, awesome. Thanks for that, Uche. And so yeah, like I mentioned, we're going to be looking at why cloud native architecture to understand some of the benefits and use cases of this type of architecture, right? And so I want us to start from cloud foundations. So let's start by understanding some of the main concepts of cloud computing. And before we go into then, I wanted us to just discuss about from traditional architecture to a cloud native architecture. What did that look like? So before now, in a traditional on-premise IT environment, you have all the physical components required to run the business. They were owned by the business themselves. They were operated, they were maintained and housed by the company itself in a physical data center. So you have a user that would connect and log on to the corporate network and will access resources that way. And that can include like things like their corporate applications, their file sharing, their storage, right? However, in the advent of the cloud provides the same access to the same resources through the internet. So, and this is hosted by a cloud service provider like Amazon Web Services. And this time itself, it comes from a time where when internet resources or connectivity was often represented by a cloud in diagrams that illustrated something like a connectivity or data flow, which is where we have, the word cloud. But it doesn't really mean that it's literally the cloud that we can see in the sky, right? So this was like the journey from a traditional to a cloud native architecture. So having said that, let's dive deep a bit then and just speak about, so what is cloud computing? What is it all about, right? So like I have here, cloud computing is an on-demand delivery of IT resources, such as your servers, your storage, your network, your database, and all your IT resources via internet with a pay-as-you-go pricing model. So instead of buying or owning and maintaining your own data centers and servers, right? Now, organizations can acquire all these technology and resources, such as compute, storage, database, and other services on an as needed basis. They can access this on demand wherever they need it. So a good illustration or example that I love to give here is, this is similar to how consumers flip a switch to turn the light in your home, when you turn on the light, and then the power company sends electricity. So with cloud computing, AWS manages and maintains all the underlying technological infrastructure that you use in a secure environment. And different organizations and businesses can access these resources via the internet to be able to develop and run their applications. And this also means that capacity can grow and shrink instantly, and you only pay for what you use, basically. And I mean, we're still going to go through all the different benefits so that you understand, some of the benefits of a cloud native architecture, basically. So now, what is cloud native architecture? So cloud native computing is basically uses the cloud delivery model to be able to build and run your scalable applications in a modern and a dynamic environment. So such as like public, private, and hybrid clouds, right? So you have things like technologies like containers, microservices, serverless functions that you deploy in a declarative code, for example. And really, the primary goal, right, of a cloud native architecture is to improve the speed, the scalability, and also the margin by you leveraging cloud economics. And cloud native, most companies that we say, oh, this company is cloud native, it basically means that right from the get-go, the company started building on the cloud. They didn't have to do a migration from on-prem to the cloud. From the get-go, they started, you know, building, deploying, and doing all the managing all their applications in a cloud computing environment from the get-go. So this is what cloud native architecture basically um, is all about. Right. And still on the cloud native architecture, I wanted to give like two major broad examples. So number one is cloud native is about how applications are created, and how they are deployed, and not necessarily where. So and secondly, it also cloud native also emphasizes microservices, scalable infrastructure, and continuous delivery. Now, for microservices, because I know that some of you might probably be at a beginner level or intermediate level, or you might be watching this later on and you're at a beginner level. So let me try to explain microservices a bit. So imagine that you are at a large food festival and there are various food stalls. And each of these food stalls, they specialize in a different type of cuisine, right? And so this festival picture is like a traditional monolithic application. where every food option is located just in one place. Now, imagine the challenges of you getting, you know, if one stall gets crowded, that singular store it gets crowded or they run out of ingredients and it affect the entire operation of that food festival. However, in contrast, think of microservices as you having multiple smaller festivals spread across the city, basically. And each of them is dedicated to a specific type of cuisine. So it means that if one small festival faces an issue, it doesn't impact the other ones. And each of them can operate independently. Each of them can manage its inventory and even scale. Each of them can scale and add more stores if it becomes really popular without waiting for the other festivals to make any changes. So in cloud native architecture, microservices work similarly. So instead of you building a single large application like the one big food festival, right? Developers can create smaller independent services, which in this illustration is smaller festivals, and each of those services can perform a specific task and communicates with other services over a network, much like how the festival organizations might use their phones or their radios to communicate all across. Just this is what microservices architecture looks like in a cloud native architecture, basically. So right now, let's now speak about cloud native architecture benefits. So what are some of the benefits of a cloud native architecture? And because now that we know what cloud native architecture means, let's just speak about what are some of the reasons why companies would decide to go cloud native. Right. So the first one is agility. Agility. Now, agility basically means faster time to market. And what that means is that AWS, for example, lets customers quickly spin up resources as they need them. So you can literally deploy hundreds or thousands of servers in minutes. And this means that, customers, including even yourself individually, you can very quickly develop and roll out new applications. It means that your teams can experiment, and innovate more quickly. If an experiment fail, you can always deprovision the service, spin something up without any risk. So, and this is great because if you look at the traditional on-premise infrastructure, right? Most companies, for them to get a server, it might typically take about 10 to 12 weeks, even sometimes longer, because then you have to wait to build all the surrounding infrastructure software, like the compute, like the database, like the analytics. But in the cloud, you can literally provision thousands of servers in minutes and have access to over 200 services on AWS. And there's an example of a company that's really made use of this. It's called Lyft, Lyft, in the US. So Lyft is a ride-sharing company in the US, right? And when they started building their ride-sharing app on AWS Cloud, they were able to launch this app just within 3 weeks. And customers were able to start booking their first ride, which is really amazing when you think about it. Secondly, is elasticity. So in the traditional data centers going back, customers and organizations used to over provision upfront because they don't know the capacity that they need. So they offer provision to be able to ensure that they have enough capacity to be able to run their business operations, especially when there's peak level of traffic. But with AWS Cloud, you can provision the actual amount of resources, knowing that you can scale in or scale out when your business needs it. So this results not just in cost saving, because now you are only paying for what you use, but also means that you can, meet the demands of your customers, of your users, and your traffic doesn't have to, stop coming to your website or your application, for example. And an example of a company or an organization that have really done this so great is Airbnb on AWS. So during a peak holiday season, right, throughout the world, Airbnb gets more traffic, coming to their website and their app. But then they are able to ramp up resources automatically, using AWS tools like auto scaling, for example. And another example, of course, is Amazon. And Amazon during things like Prime Day or Black Friday, Black Friday just passed of recent, Amazon is able to make use of elasticity, benefit of a cloud native architecture to be able to scale in such a time as that. Number three, in terms of why cloud native architecture an advantage is cost savings. Of course, every major discussion ends with costs in terms of the cloud. So AWS Cloud allows customers to trade upfront capital expenditure with low variable costs that can scale along with their businesses. So, and when variable costs or variable expense is much lower than what the customers can do, it's much lower than what the customers would have been able to do themselves. And this is because of what we call AWS economics of scale. And we've lowered prices a couple of times since AWS was launched in 2006. And for an example, an organization like BBC, British Broadcasting Corporation, was able to save costs by 93% just by moving their document store to cloud. So they migrated to a service called Amazon Document DB to get the benefit of a fully managed service where they can store and query their data in a simple and reliable way. And that just helps them because they manage service, they don't have to manage it and then reduce their costs significantly. And the last benefit is deploy globally within minutes. Now, with AWS trusted global infrastructure, the regions, the availability zones, customer can deploy their workloads in a matter of minutes, close to where their customers are in different part of the world with just a few clicks. Now, an example of a company that everyone will probably be able to relate to very well is Netflix. So almost all of us watch Netflix, right? So Netflix has more than 260 million customers in over 190 countries, and it runs absolutely on AWS Cloud. And they're able to do that, you're able to go to whatever country, log into your Netflix account, you continue watching because of the deploy global within minutes benefit of the cloud native architecture. It means that because of the type of services that we have, like CloudFront, which is a cloud delivery network, all the edge services, all the regions that we have all over the world, and availability zone, you are able to deploy your application or your website near to where your customers are, which helps different organizations to be able to expand to different regions, to be able to expand to different countries in the world. So all these benefits of cloud computing and cloud native architectures, right, are the main reasons why organizations are migrating to the cloud and why they need people like you, for example, to be able to help them to achieve, their goals, save them a lot of cost, and deliver more for their customer. And this is one of the reasons why the AWS user group, Nigeria University of Ibadan chapter has put together a bootcamp like this, spearheaded and being managed by your great lead, and Ambassador Abdulhakim, to inspire you in such a gathering like this and see, some of the benefits that the cloud computing provides and how you can start launching your career in cloud computing. Right. So having said that, let's take a look at what are some of the use cases of a cloud native architecture, right? What are some of the things that we are seeing in the market of how companies and organizations are using cloud native? Number one is fintech. Number one that I have here is fintech. So in fintech, financial technology companies, an example of that in Nigeria is Paystack, Flutterwave, that we can relate to. So in fintech, it means that you can have like a secure a secure, compliant, and scalable financial services. And also, it means, for example, you don't have to provision infrastructure. You don't have to manage the infrastructure. You can easily use serverless services, for example, and have them running so that whichever time everything is running and you're paying for what you use. And because of the security of AWS Cloud, right? Because at AWS, everything starts with security. Security is our number one main priority for our customers. So, you know, for fintech firms, you have the confidence of a secure, compliant, and scalable environment. Second is e-commerce. So, and I use the example of Amazon during Black Friday, being able to scale because of the elasticity benefit of the cloud. And that's the use case that we are seeing in an e-commerce environment or organizations. There's scalability during peak times, during peak period when there's a lot of demand. December period when people are shopping a lot online, is able to scale to adjust to the demand, and afterwards scale back. SaaS platforms as well. A great example of SaaS platform is Slack. I don't know if many of you use Slack or you're aware. You know the app or the company. So Slack, for example, they are able to adjust their resources dynamically to match real-time demand. For example, on a Saturday morning like this, not much people are using Slack. Why? Because, most people work 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, right? So they'll probably not be having a lot of demand at the moment. So they're able to, match real-time demand to be able to optimize their operational cost while ensuring that their service is reliable and it's satisfying their users. And lastly is streaming services. Streaming service. So for streaming service, the main goal here is high availability. The fact that the service is highly available. Highly available means that you maybe you have a multi-availability zone environment, and it means that your users can be sure whenever they come to your platform that it's going to be available. It's not going to be down for any reason because you are making use of the global regions and availability zones that AWS Cloud provide, for example. And example of that, like I mentioned, is Netflix, Amazon as well, Prime Video on Amazon. Taking advantage of cloud native architecture for higher availability and things like personalized content delivery using machine learning. How many of you have gone to have gone on Netflix, for example, and it tells you something like, because you watch this and it's giving you recommendations. That's the power of machine learning, personalization there. Using the data of different things that you've watched, putting it together to then give you those personalized recommendations, basically, or things like it thinks that you're going to be like to watch, for example. Right. So now, what are some of the call to actions, right, for you to start embarking on your cloud native journey, and just to be challenged, right, to engage with learning and development, especially as you're starting out. So I would encourage you to, especially in this boot camp, right, there's a lot of sessions that will be coming up. Abdulhakim has, and maybe some of the members of the team has put together this amazing session for you to learn. So engage with learning and development. And I wanted to also call out this AWS platform. You can register for a free account on AWS Skill Builder, and that gives you the access to different lessons that are free of charge that you can use to learn to learn, to just engage with learning and development, take different lessons, upskill yourself on different AWS training and certifications program as well. Some courses, some hands-on learning, some labs for you to upskill and for you to learn. And I think Uche was saying when we started that he has 2 certifications. That's really good. That's one of the ways to really engage in.
Very sorry, sir. We
Yeah.
have 4 more minutes to take the question and answer. And thank you so
Okay.
much, Mr. Olusola Oladipupo, for someone who asked that I am new to AWS. I've been wanting to take courses on cloud computing, but had no access to one. I think that is the only question that we have.
Okay, but wanted to take courses on. Okay, right. So I actually just I just in fact I think the slide is still showing on the screen. So the person that is asking the question, so if you're new to AWS and you want to take courses on cloud computing, right? You can register on Skill Builder, like I have on the screen. There's a free account that you can register on, and then there are different courses there. For example, if you're wanting to take the Cloud Foundational Practitioner, the Cloud Practitioner certification, you can see some of the courses on AWS Skill Builder, and then have access to that free of charge. By the way, there are some paid. Just a caveat: there are some paid courses on Skill Builder, but there are a lot of free ones as well that you can do. So I think that will probably be the best where to start.
Thank you so much, Mr. Olusola Oladipupo, for
Thank you.
coming to deliver the session with us at the University of Ibadan, AWS user group. Thank you so much. We look forward to having you more in our future session. So
Thank
we
you
were
so much
meant
for
to
having
have
me.
some challenges that we are currently facing now. The session is going to be delivered next week. That is AWS, some of the AWS infrastructures, AWS Cloud Watch, AWS Config, and some other things that we're going to be discussing. Like for joining us for this session, we'll be having the next session by next week Saturday. Thank you so much. Have a nice day. Goodbye, everyone.